Hi. Okay, so this is last minute weeks 27 and 28 combined, finishing up Aquarius. And Virgo, you're next, and I just really hope that God, no, it's quite emotional. I've got Pink Spider underneath here. I've got the, okay, we'll get into it. I'm gonna get into finishing up guides and concerns, who they are in your 11th house, and then your air story, all your air houses together. So that was last week, was the guides and concerns, and catching up on, like, just even trying not to become totally psychotic with the amount of work. So air stories are work. Air stories, not understanding them, but the work that they bring, the information processing is so tremendous. So I've got to remember to put warnings up about that for next year. So got the hostel. I found something really, really neat regarding the house, designing, how to design a house. Okay, because I found something. It's because of dealing with habitats for Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini that I found something so cool. So it's all more science. But this is what I've been working on. This is where I have been. All of this. This is the first book. I have 4, 5, 6 books to do for my beginning of drawing program. I've got to get this launched. And it's just going to launch when it's ready to launch is what it's going to do. And we're going to adapt the design of the program to the timing that my guides allow, because they're doing that thing still. I was still cramming, so I was going to finish today the photo work, and they were still cramming some more information in to do with Merck ivermectin, because the India's Bar Association, their lawyers association, is suing the WHO, the World Health Organization, and some of their own doctors over the barring the use of ivermectin in treatments for COVID. It's going to be huge. I think there are at least 1,000 doctors in Germany as well forming a lawsuit. And it's because Merck's patent on ivermectin ran out. It's been around for 40 years, and it's not profitable, right? Only 20% of the world's population there's only enough of the genetic therapy of non-vaccines that have been made available. So patients were, India found out, their lawyers found out that American doctors had been prescribing ivermectin as treatments for COVID patients early on, and it was succeeding, and then those patients were taken off. It was a forced removal of the ivermectin treatment. Their families sued, and the courts overturned the judgments by the hospitals or whoever was applying the pressure, got the patients back on ivermectin, and the patients were healed. India found this out. Their own doctor had issued, their head doctor had issued a statement against the prescribing of ivermectin, and they went after, and then published in a tweet, published an article, a page from a private corporate publication in support of this, and so they went after that. They jumped down that rabbit hole, and basically you're looking at the heart of how to get these guys on the corruption of this. So I went to Merck's website, got their statements, and I also found out that, like, I went and found a PDF from the World Health Organization that was actually in support of administering ivermectin. And then I found out about the Orange Book. So that's going to take me back to the Orange Lodge, and the FDA uses an Orange Book, which is things that are no longer under patent, but also approved. And so really we're wrapping the game. I went down there because I was looking into what I was at, what do we call it? Well, I'm going to let it go because it's not coming to mind. Yep, an institute, a medical institute, one of the big ones in the States. And I'm having a block about it because there's just way too much information floating through my mind. But I was going to it because of bipolarism and looking at what they describe as problems that are bipolar, and so much of it's astrological, right? Because I'm getting into the creative, it's also a creative process that we work in. So, but in terms of why this is relevant to Aquarius, what you do with what you know, right? This is me. These are 3 of my logos, you know, together. My Deep Breath Books, self-publication label, my Kristen Elizabeth design, Drawings and Design logo. And a year from here, my series, this being what we're doing right now, being one of those. And of course, then I've got my beginning of drawing. So why I've got it here is because I've been pulling together so many people from my past, my present, everything, because that's what Aquarius is. Gemini as well, and Libra. It's all about people, all about how many people, what you've learned from them, about yourself, about the world. I still have several pages left to create that are like this. And of course, Gallico shows up again with this snowflake. I think I've mentioned that already, so I won't describe all these pages. I'll just give you an actual visual of exactly how many people I've got. This book isn't, these pages aren't all in order of the book. There are missing pages because I removed ones that don't have collages on them. But here we go with India's, what I'm finding out about India's true history, that it's very exciting what everybody's finding out, you know, and that Nehru's a Mason, and that their history was rewritten by Nehru and the Masons, so that they didn't know about certain things that were done to them. Now they're finding out because the internet's amazing. The Etruscans were African, well, they were Etruscans, but they were black. And so there's a whole suppressed culture there that I find out thanks to tarot and astrology. Especially tarot, because I found out about all of this because of the Sibyl's Oraculum, because they led me, in her research, she found Mami Wata, she found Mama Zogbe's work, and so that leads me to the rest of this, which involves many people's work, yes. Mama Zogbe gets, you know, but because, again, of thanks to tarot. It takes me back to the very beginning of my beginning of drawing. I was always working with Mary Everest Boole with her math drawings. It doesn't show up well here, I've got to fix that, but she would do Boolean curves. Her husband, George Boole, gave us the zeros and ones, gave us the binary language of computer programming. Also Boolean logic. If you do a search with Boolean logic and you type in a word with the plus sign, with another word, with the plus sign, with another word, with the plus sign, so on, that's Boolean. That's George Boole, that's her husband. Her uncle is, you know, of course, the colonial who surveyed India, and Mount Everest is named for him. But she also wrote a book, let me get, and it's been here all along, and I just totally failed to remember. So she's a mathematician, yes, scientist. Preparation of the child for science, the message of psychic science for the mother and nurses. That's a publication that she wrote in request from Society for Psychical Research in the UK. Here comes Paul Gallico again with his series of Alexander Hero books, novels. Gallico is Poseidon Adventure. He's the guy that loves to drive me nuts. My partner was friends with one of his sons. And he, Paul Gallico, was the favorite sports writer for my partner, who is also a sports writer. But anyway, she writes this, one of her books is written, she pulls it all together with psychic work and math and science, and so does her husband George. So our Boolean logic and our zeros and ones, our binary system, he actually writes a poem, The Fellowship of the Dead. I only just found this out by doing the digging work, by doing 11th house, and well, we're in Virgo as well. Pulling it all together, going back. This is a page I did, a drawing I did of her back 13 years ago for my beginning of drawing program. I typed all of this up, and it's right there. And at the time, I wasn't focusing on psychic work. And so I didn't appreciate what I was even typing up then. And I've been struggling with it, and I've only paid attention, right? So she's been with me right from the beginning. And so has George. So this is the studio I used to teach out of and look after. and then it would belong to an art supply store that was right next door, and they didn't maintain it. They didn't put the efforts into it. They made me look after it and try to do all the advertising for it. So within 2 years it was closed down, but it's a mental space for me now. Yes. And this is how I started out. This is my first poster. So this only matters in terms of proving my point a bit at a glance. What I did on the work of black and white, I went into my thesaurus and looked up all words connected to black and darkness and white and lightness and just how racist everything is. There's a quote from, but what's so cool is, because Malcolm X connected it to the word necro, I found this particular page on a Tumblr blog. And necromancer, now he used it to refer to the dead, and of course, a lot of Malcolm's program was at first totally influenced by the Freemasonic Nation of Islam agenda. And then he broke free from that, and look where it got him, right? But necromancer, communicates with the dead. Well, who were the primary communicators with spirits? African prophets and prophetesses. Primarily prophetesses, but prophets as well. So, they knew, Europeans knew all along who they were targeting and why. My favorite surah, as far as learning about light and dark and drawings, I just could almost, him and his master, who was another Freemason. But then, this is skipping past the question pages, some of my own work, but the stories about how I've resolved certain... This workbook is about the creative... Okay, assuming I cut out a couple minutes ago, but the creative process of friction thinking and how our minds deal with big concepts that have shape, but we need to find the shape of them. And I'll try and slow my speech down because I know it's not relaxing. But it's an actual positive, but the mind controllers, the abusers, know that it's very easy to take something that's difficult but positive and invert it into a negative and trauma. And so we deal with them as blocks, and we deal with them as trauma, and we deal with them as inhibitors. And then, of course, actual negatives happen to us through trauma. And so we have to clear that out. This book is for clearing that out, identifying the different traumas and negative blocks so that we can get into the positive frictions, the positive bufferings and bumps. This is my kid's work where he's come through. This is one of my adopted kids, so to speak. This is what he gets up to. I got him onto graffiti when he was with me, and I would take him to the library, and he told me that graffiti, I introduced him to it in books, and he was like, that's not original. And now, bless him. I did that. Some of my students' work, right? So these are some of my people. Some of the pages I haven't printed up yet. No, they're not going to stay penciled in. I print things up to write in them because I can't do everything at a screen. These are some of them. And I worked in schools as well. I volunteered, yes, but I busted my ass and did a lot of art stuff in there that you wouldn't get from the art programs that are in there. And then more pages like this. Some are not printed on both sides because I haven't finished all the collages yet. But people whose work I've worked with for the drawing they have learned from for the sake of drawing. But here are personal people that were in my life. This is my main mentor, Deborah. And she was a professional musician amongst many things. And she would have all kinds of music. And she was a colleague with my mom. My mom was a professional musician, professional classical singer. And someone like Jack Glatzer, Barbara Risk, just lots of people. Then back to different sources. Of course, we have to get into, and there's the Sibyl's Oraculum that I was speaking of with this is how I found out, so Tiana Lee McCuller and Kathleen Foisy, thanks to them, I found out about Mama Zogbe and Mama Wata, and the true Greek Delphi oracles, etc., the whole truth about Lilith. These are people that my mom worked with, that some of whom were directly in my life. Barbara Conrad's advice to my mom about getting down and dirty in order to really make it, that stayed with me ever since childhood. Let's see, these guys were household visitors. These people, well, you don't need to know everything because that's not what you're here for, but in terms of this is my mom, and just a few snapshots. This is me and this is me and her, right? My music teachers, I had private music teachers that I failed with completely for 8 years. But childhood, all I could do was absorb. My mom was dying while I was a child. So between performances and hospital visits and chemo treatments, it was basically 8 years of all I could do was be the audience to it. But my grandmother was also a Salvation Army Freemason pianist with her pal Mary Steeds for about 70 years. They had to forcibly retire her. I did all my 8 years of piano studies in Michael Matthews' studio. Never met the guy, but totally influenced by him. Yes, there's mom. My university days, my high school days, teachers that really actually do mean a lot to me. I keep track of everybody. I went and found everybody. Well, if I can't find you online and I didn't keep track of it, I destroyed a lot of stuff back in the day. Then I don't have you here. But otherwise, so there's my art teacher from high school who's missing. I'll make a note of her, as well as a few other teachers going back to elementary school. But basically, people that I've worked with that I wouldn't be where I am without, right? I do have an Aquarius moon, so it's going to be this insane. More university days, people that I teamed up with, fellow students, but also my favorite arts history prof. My work in film, both independent and with union, briefly. And that's where there's a lot more to go. Well, there's not a lot more to go. There are a few, about 5, 6, 7, 8 pages more to go. And then the pages for my other workbooks. So it's been, that's what I've been doing. Not just photo collages. These are all the questions. Some pages need to be finished. Some pages are missing some questions, but by and large, they're all there. So similar, it's not a quick experience. And now, that's that. I'll calm my voice down and get into briefly guides and concerns for House 11. Okay, I'll be right back. Oh, I'm not even shooting at the right angle. Let's fix that. Good Lord. Okay, there we go. So you can see the Mars and Sun are really close together right now. And this Purima is that prophetess star. And that's, given my deep dives, there's just been stuff about Aquarius. I think I found what I felt like I needed to find in the star card by researching it, by figuring out that the star in the star card, the woman, is actually Urania. And possibly Aquarius should be ruled by Urania, not Uranus. Urania is Uranus's granddaughter and one of the muses, one of the 9 muses, and she is in charge of astrology. But so it's actually her in the star card. She shares an identity as far as the occultists are concerned with, well, the people that created the cards, shares an identity with Isis, which takes us right back down to all the work that I've done figuring out the West African influences on East Africa through Egypt. So we're looking again at the Sibyls, which brings us to this prophetess Purima, and she now she is one of 3. She's like a part of a 3-faced, well, 3 sisters possibly, but or a 3-faced goddess, and what did I... She and her sister, they have separate festivals within a week of each other in January. And my son was conceived right between those festival dates. So that's very... And they guard over their maternity festivals. They are maternity goddesses. So what's that about? But we're dealing with prophecy with that star. Now, why did they pick that star, right? And why? So this whole Virgo idea of the Virgin, very female. So should we... And then what we know about the Hermit card being the key number 9 and belonging to the Sage, which the Hermeticists associate with Aquarius. So should the Hermit card actually be Aquarius, and should the Star card actually be Virgo? That would be a thing. And should Urania be ruling? So I'm gonna, every time I think of Uranus now, I'm gonna think of Urania. And I'm really quite compelled by following that through, because I know that the astronomer, that when they decided to name the planet Uranus, it's the only planet with a Greek name, but they also did it back in the day, of course, when we were building the ideas about Aquarius, it was ruled by Saturn because they hadn't found Uranus yet, right? And there are still strong Saturn ties to this, to Aquarius for me. I'm convinced through the events that happened in my life that are Saturn events, totally coinciding or working together with Uranus events or Urania events. So that's where our Mars, now the Mars and Sun, loves and loyalties right with instincts and triggers. So I've been doing a lot of emotional reconnecting with my partner, and I have a feeling that has everything to do with it. And we have Mercury near Spica, and we've got to figure out what that's about. Of course, in retro, but I find retros to be very productive for me. I actually really like retro energy. Mercury retro energy, and so Minnow Pond, I know he feels the same way, and it's good to hear that from him. Everybody else puts cautions around doing anything, and I'm like, no, go for gold. There's Venus. I found Venus right, I think next to, yes, right next to this nebula. Do I have information? Oh, because I'm under the, right, I'm at wrong time of day. Once you're under the, with this app, once you're below the horizon, you can't access the information. You have to be above the horizon. But look at her. Now, this is only one pattern for Libra, so Libra's still going there, and we're not going to reach Scorpius stars for a little while yet. So still in Libra. And I think I can leave it there for now. So, but yeah, there's very interesting things that are either mixed up on purpose, well, always on purpose, between Virgo and Aquarius. But that's, oh, I do have the information here. Globular cluster in the constellation of Libra. This is where I found Venus a few days ago. There was something about it. They were formed, the cluster was formed in a time before the galaxy formed a disk and spiral arms. So I thought that was multiple, some of the stars are apparently younger, indicating multiple star forming epochs. They're getting that from Wikipedia, so it probably getting its information from NASA, which, you know, is Nazi, but anyway. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know what kind of energy that gives us. We've got to sort of go through the journals and find out what happens to us at that time a few days ago, and then that would tell us something about what that means between those two spots. Okay, let me shift. Future thoughts for this house. Who's helping you with it, guiding you in it? And I kind of went back and got all 3 houses out, since I was working on all 3 houses anyway for the air story. And something that came out in a prediction has pulled certain things together for me. I'm going to take a moment and regroup my thoughts, because it's just so much. It's really hard to go free flow through this. I've even been scared to show up to do this video, just because of how much but that's how it's meant to be. It's meant to be this stacked with information. So, and the question is, like, I'm leaving some part, believe it or not, I'm leaving some out. I'm trying to prioritize. Okay, so I'll be right back. Not that you notice, it's just a matter of on, off, off, on. So one thing I do now to try to figure out if there's anybody particularly helping me with the house, as opposed to my guides always helping me, I go into the predictions for the month. Also, and the research. What are the results? And I found this. Just want to say, even Nazi Disney knows who to give tribute to in its Hercules film, of course. The Muses, they only put 5 instead of 9, right? So Urania would be one of these. Whether or not she made it to the movie, I can't remember. I'm not in a hurry to go back and watch anything Disney. But yes, they are all black because Disney knows. Disney knows who the true oracles are and were, and just puts it right in everybody's face without probably meaning to totally get us straight about the truth, right? Because Disney traffics children. Fiona Barnett. So, now, Urania being one of those, I'm down that rabbit hole. Gatesoflight.com. Now I find that there's limited information, and yet this is not going to be impossible to dig into, because I've found enough hermetic sources. They're not trying to hide anything. If you go looking for it, it's right there. The star key, we have the lovely Isis Urania. Heavenly Earth Mother Isis was also known as Hathor. Now, that is not... if you go digging into Hathor and Isis, then you know that, no, they're not necessarily. It can be hard to tell them apart at times, but they do have differences in terms of how people saw them, who worshipped them, yeah? People who worshipped one didn't necessarily worship the other the same. But there so that's Urania. And so I got that from gatesoflight.com. There's other information here. Is there anything? 12 personalities of the cosmos. Her attainment in the use of the laws of the macrocosm and Mother Nature. All to be revealed to you by her. Wow. And then, of course, associating with the Tower card. Now, oh yeah, I found the fish hook. It's in there. They include it in there. Yes, the fish hook is actually connected to Scorpius. And Libra used to be the hook of Scorpius constellation. It used to be the one constellation. I'm just trying to figure out why I kept... The Empress will find her full expression in the star card. These 3 cards, so the world, no, that's the wheel. The wheel, the Empress, and the star, called Revelation, Third Stage of Spiritual Unfoldment by Paul Foster Case. So there are 12 stars above the Empress's head. Now we know they get all of this from, if we go back into Natural Tahuti's work with Mama Zogbe, we know that that's all coming from West Africa. Okay, so I went digging into this Isis Urania temple, of course, Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Looked that up. Both, so Green Park. So, and then Isis Urania, the Return of the Goddess. So you just start looking and you're like, oh, Return of the Goddess. Then we get into Franchel of Saske Weber. Return of the Black Goddess. Now, we know what the Masons and everybody does in the Great White Brotherhood, Great White Fraternity, about black and white. Now, we know that they're going to cage this. We know that they know about the African prophetesses, so we know what it really means, and we know that they're going to play it a certain other way. Black Madonna. Black Madonna is a recurring theme. If you get into all of that, they actually would do Black Madonna carvings. So, this gives you the idea that I've done some significant digging on this. Dissident orders deriving from Isis Urania number 3. That's a lodge. Okay. Urania's mirror. Again, so 8th ray creation goddess. Now there are 3 websites belonging to the Francesca. Okay. Portal Chemica. Am I right? Yeah. Yeah. A lot of not that it's wrong to have products associated, but I can smell Freemasons. MedicineWoman.com. Same person. And what did I find? Urania, Ceremonial Magic of the Goddess, Liturgy of the Fellowship of Isis. Isis and Hathor, so I got into that, and yeah, no, there was enough to find that. And look at this. Look at this carving of Hathor. How black is she? Yeah? They just keep pretending like it's not African. And then I got triggered by Regina Kelly showing up. Latin epithet Stella Maris, Star of the Sea, also known as Regina Kelly Cooley, which is also the hostel that my best friend Tracy, her daughter, was murdered in by high up people. It was named Regina Kelly Cooley. And so then we took a break that night. Lizzie, yes, there's my Twin Peaks reference. Lizzie. So, Ancient Egypt Online, goddesses associated with Isis. However, but it does some decent work in terms of explaining. You know, it's hard to always just rely on third party. But another thing, I'll pause for a second. In terms of determining, mostly 11th house, I feel it's all me. It's all me. I mean, yes, it is down. So is it all you? Is your 11th house all about you? That's what I feel. Probably. Because it's all your own effort. It's all your own uniqueness. It's all your own interests, and actually getting in touch, like finding them, fighting for them. Hestia, there was a prediction from Tarot Victoria, and 4 goddesses came up, and Vesta was one of them, and I was looking into that, and here we go with another. Vesta is Hestia, and here we have a black figure, like a Black Madonna again, but she's very much missing from a lot of the history. Never mind. She was in charge of the hearth of home. She was very much worshipped at home. And so this is the reading. It was Virgo, August versus my North Node's in Virgo. But oh, it's gonna do that, isn't it? Okay, sorry. Ostara doesn't exist. Okay, Ostara is a Freemason Hermetic creation based on pulling together elements from other goddesses. There's an excellent article I found that digs into just how. So why does the goddess deck have an Ostara card? Yeah. However, this Ishel in the center. Okay. There's Vesta and White Tara. Tara's going to connect me to. Tara shows up for me enough, and it's going to be. I feel like it's just going to be more Kali energy. But Ishel, I had to look her up. And so the Maya, she's Mayan, and the Maya are very important. And that's going to take me back to 3rd house. So I'll hold off on that for now. But for 11th, yeah, I feel like it's really down to, I've written all of this, but I feel like because it took a while to figure that out. I look at my predictions and I see, even this month, I had a lot more in my face encounters. I get them often enough, but this is a home I clean, and there was actually the blue, just like blue doors, right? And the magic circle, they use a blue door. The association, the Masonic Association of Magicians, their headquarters in London has a blue door. But the double blue door. I have a photo of it in here somewhere, but I'm not going to try and find everything. Drive you totally nuts, sorry. And in the same home, I already knew it was there, but there's a pink spider. And I'm speaking pink spider, of course, because of what I painted when I was 2. The arm from Twin Peaks in the store window right up the street from me, with his head down, head down on the floor. Of course, my blue rose stuff. But again, figuring it all out, that's pulling it all together from all 3 houses. I was doing some of that work here, because also what I did, I went and got the other pages out. What happened in, when my Phoenix cards arrived, and she did, and Susan and I, because Susan had passed, right? So, is there anything I want to say? Because, now I do know because Aquarius and Ganymede, and I went more into Ganymede, because of finding out about Urania. And I have a disproportionate number of, basically, gay men who are connecting with me, who look after me, and I look after them. Not only in this world, but between worlds. And the idea of the abuse, the sheer abuse and the exploits, the sex trafficking, which isn't sex, of course, and it's torture. Because sex should be a word that refers to consensual things. But there's definitely something there as well. And I'm going to pause for a moment. Yeah, because her cards arrived, her cards arrived during this month. Susan Shepherd's cards, her Phoenix cards arrived. And the first card, and I believe I was talking to her, because I believe I talked to anybody directly. That's what I'm used to with the murder victims. So, otherwise, yeah, no, I wanted to talk to her. And so we did. She likes to give 7. She wants you always to pick out 7 cards from the Phoenix cards to get a sense of 7 past lives. I wanted her to. I didn't want to pick out the cards. I wanted her to make cards fly, because then I knew it wasn't just my own feelings, my own subconscious. And this is the first card, and it hit so well with me because it's Maya. And it's the Jaguar King, Jaguar energy. And Ishal, that shows up in that reading, which was, again, it's during Gemini, but then it came through, it was predicting what was coming through to me in September with this Jaguar energy. And Ishal is Jaguar as well. Ishal, I'll get the photo up of her in a moment again. I started, if I can show this by moving the camera enough, let's just screw things up a little bit. Up on my wall, there's a Maya. That's one of my main lessons, are Maya glyphs, because they're so good for training your hand. Once you get into drawing one, you have to stay with it, because well, I mean you don't have to, but in terms of it's better to, it's so circular, it's so continuous, the motion of it, that you really, it's like a ride that you get on, and you kind of need to stay on it. And so it's just, so I keep that up, but it's also one of my, I have several of them that I use, and well, 4 to be precise. And so it is because the Maya also understood 0. better than anybody sooner. They built so much of their knowledge around Zero. So that when she showed up here, and I was like, well, I hadn't actually come across her before, Ixchel. And so I thought, well, I'm going to look it up. And I didn't know when I was looking her up that she was Mayan. But I knew that there was something being said to me here, especially when White Tara shows up. But the fact that they took me they tied it all together for me with what I do with the drawing. Now I've been working on my own another photo collage, yes. See, there's my Tara, that's who looks after me. She was my girl. And of course Tara as an Irish thing, not only goddess Tara from India, but well, and throughout Asia, but as a Celtic, the Tara is where kings and queens got crowned, whether or not you like kings or queens. But I come from the O'Neills, and they had everything to do with Tara through my McLaughlin side. And so when I named my girl, and she was with me for 12 years, and she had a very violent, cancerous end, and she didn't want to leave me, and it took 3 shots, and they had to shoot straight into her heart, basically, to make her go, because she didn't want to leave me. So when Victoria says a person who left this world is the one who protects you, I mean, I know I work with a lot of people, but sometimes it's just about Tara, because who was Tara? Who is she? Is she just a cat? But you see, so the Maya calendar is calendars within calendars. They knew how to layer, right? Even with the nakshatras. What do I have? Can I get it to... No, I'm doing that thing again where I don't do what I could do. The Kala chakra. Kala, hello Kala, Kali. Wheel of time, right? And you've got wheels within wheels. Yes? And down here, Maya again, just explaining their own wheel system, the gears, yes? And I knew that when I was creating, when I saw the problems between tropical and sidereal, and I was just like, well, but this is easy enough to solve. You just put one wheel inside another wheel, right? So, has everything to do with Pink Spider astrology. And here's Ixchel down here. I really like the artist, psychic Thalia Cook, or Thalia or Thalia, but beautiful work. Always, all of her goddess work. I really like what she does. See there. Now, Chang'e, in the moon goddess in China, she also has the rabbit. She was confined to the moon with only her pet rabbit for company. And here we have Ixchel with a rabbit. Yes? All this fertility, right? And that helps us prove exactly what they knew they were doing when they created Ostara just 150 years ago or so. Just get in the fridge. And so if I just go back, I've got about 12,000 images in this phone again, right? So here she is. So this is Jaguar energy again coming at me. So something to do with that in Aquarius, yes? We're getting the answers is what we're doing. Here's Ostara and the article, Ostara and the Hare. Not ancient, but not as modern. And then I went to it, of course. Not as modern as some skeptics think. Stephen Winnick. So he's excellent work there. blogs.loc.gov if you want to look that up. And I've got the whole... I took note of it all with some excellent commentary and answers. And mind control through the White Rabbit. If you look up, if you know anything about how they use white rabbits in mind control. So Alice in Wonderland, yes, it's not an accident. She was following a white rabbit. They actually use that in trauma-based conditioning. Again, thanks to the years I've spent learning from the victims. namely Fiona Barnett and David Schroeder. So in the comments, somebody pointed out how to get a negative proof, lack of evidence to support either Ostara or the bird hair connection, right? And so then by asking that question, he actually takes a, explains why he thinks the lack of proof proves that there isn't actually a historic Ostara. Again, that has everything to do with, I mean, if you look at the symbolism, yes, and how similar it is, and we look at the return of the black goddess that isn't a black goddess. I'm just getting back to that image, right? So there's something to do. We're gonna Statue of Liberty, and look, we've got the lilies there. This is all just, we know what this is. Okay, so bear with me.